It's important that we understand that sharing the gospel and seeing someone make a decision for Christ is not something that happens instantaneously. It's a process. Even if it happens at one moment, there's been other people that have been praying and sowing and speaking into their lives. And one of the tools we use is the gray matrix. Now, before I talk about the gray matrix, let me just explain it. So, when I was in New York City, I saw a beautiful Dutch wife, a woman who later became my wife. But I did not decide to marry her like that. It took a process over a year and a half to finally come to the Netherlands and to marry her. And boy, am I happy I married her. Now, back to the story of Jesus Christ. People need to understand what we're talking to them about. I prayed with people who come from a Hindu background, and later I realized, you know what, they have no clue what they did. They just added Jesus onto the list of many gods that they served. So it's important that when we pray with people and we lead them to Christ, or we share, that we make sure and realize where people really are at. And that's where the gray matrix comes in handy. You see, the gray matrix has 0 being where people make a decision to follow Christ. And -1 would be like them understanding the gospel. -2, just then the whole process, you go all the way down to -10, where people have no clue that God exists. They don't believe in anything, and they know nothing about the Bible or the gospel. But as people find out more and hear more, you get them closer and closer to make a decision. And as they make a decision for Christ, and they start growing in church and disciplines and prayer, and just continue to develop in their relationship with God. All right? But the gray matrix also has another dimension, and that's the negative dimension and the positive dimension. What do I mean? There's places in the world, such as Western Europe, where a lot of people are low on the scale, and they're also pretty negative. For example, in Holland, the most mistrusted institution is the church. Very few people have a love for the church, which is unfortunate, but that's another subject. But you might go somewhere like Brazil or Ukraine, or parts of the world that are a lot more Christian, that are experiencing amazing growth in the churches. And you'll find people, they might be low here on the scale, but they're actually quite open. And in this context, in these parts of the world, sharing the gospel is a lot easier. I mean, I remember when I was in Mexicali, Mexico, and there was literally people in the red light district coming up to me, getting down on their knees, saying, "Hey, you're a Christian, can you please pray for me?" Which is amazing, because here in Holland, many times if you approach people on the street and say, "Hey, can I give you an encouraging word?" they'll run away because they don't want to have a stranger talk to them about the gospel. So it's good to realize which context you're in, if you're one that's positive and open or one that's closed. And this is where power evangelism comes in, because if you approach someone and you pray for them and they get healed, or you get a spot-on word of knowledge, and they say, "How do you know that?" What happens is that there can be a rapid movement, and that they become more open, so they move this way, and not only more open, but they move up on the gray matrix, or some call this the Engel scale. So it's important to realize that sharing the gospel with people is a process, and that we're all learning, and that we're all growing in here. And one of the best ways, the way that Jesus and Paul, and the way that we can share the gospel, is not just with words, but also with power. Healing the sick, using words of knowledge, using prophetic gifts, using deliverance. And this is what I want to help you and all of us grow in, and that's power evangelism. Power evangelism, just do it.